Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. This episode is all about technology and healthcare. We have another special guest, and his name is Chris Tremblay. You know what? I don't want to spoil it. I'll say this. His field deals with the latest and greatest cutting-edge technology and ties it to better patient outcomes in healthcare. That's all I'm going to give you. And he was a professional athlete. Thinking San Diego Padres and Baltimore Orioles. That's all I'm going to give you. The rest of it, you're going to have to listen to the episode. As always, we do our best to bring you innovative guests that are doing things a little differently, that are in the medical sales space, making things happen. And as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really do hope you enjoy this interview. How are we doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great, Samuel. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Tremblay. I currently am a director of business development for a company called Talus Clinical. We are in the MedTech space, focused on software in the critical care areas of the health system. So high acuity areas like anesthesia, perfusion cases, ECMO, ICUs, and then we also have a segment of our software that focuses on labor and delivery.
Got it.
If you think about high acuity areas, right, very critical care areas of the hospital. So our solution really focuses on collecting and connecting medical devices from multiple companies. We're completely agnostic, collects that data, pushes it to hospital EMR, again, completely agnostic. And then allows clinicians to, automatically timestamp data, collect it at its highest frequency. So whether it's, minute to minute, every 5 minutes, every second, in relation to maybe patient vitals, we collect all that automatically, timestamp it. Like I said, we allow the physicians and hospital systems on the back end to really build in their own protocols for guidances. And what I mean by that is if you think about healthcare systems, and they have their kind of advisories and their own schools of thought on how to best manage patients in these high acuity areas. Our engine, our software allows them to build on the back end these thresholds and these protocols. So when, a ventilator gets to a certain threshold, or an ECMO machine gets to a certain threshold, or if you need to wean a patient off a ventilator, this software will give advisories and give protocols to the system and let them manage it at scale efficiently with less staff, right? That's a big issue right now. So it's a really clean way to bring in technology, collect data at scale, manage your resources efficiently, and do it to the best of their abilities to their protocols.
Wow. So a couple questions around this. So your software can work with any device. It doesn't matter which company's made it. It can work with it.
Yeah, as long as the device itself has a protocol, if it's collecting data, if it can push data, we can connect with it.
Got it. And talk to us a little bit about it. Is this something that's new? Has this always been around? When did this become what it is today?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I knew the complete history on the entire industry of this. I'm fairly new to this company, so even myself, I'm still learning and growing. But it's been around a while. I think the software in relation to the back end that we offer, the protocols, the engine itself, that is new. I mean, that is groundbreaking in the industry. And all of these legacy machines, I call legacy, they've been around 10, 15 years. We have the ability to collect from them. So I'd say the ability has been there for a while, but I think only now we're really applying the technology to really make that data actionable, right? Like 15 years ago, we were just looking at vitals and they were vitals and it was great. Right. And we were charting it on paper, right? Now we can take all that data across, an entire case, and we could look at, we can contextualize it, we can digest it, and then we can look at over a span of a month at a health system and say, okay, here's where, our protocols got triggered. Why did they get triggered? Maybe what can we do better as a staff to get more
Wow.
efficient? The other crazy thing is, the data really, and this is just, all humans are fallible, right? I mean, we all
Right.
make mistakes. The data, because it's collected automatically, really takes away the opportunity for humans to not chart certain things that then leads to the hospital
Mm,
billing the payers. So in a
yeah.
lot of cases,
Yeah.
we've found that we can actually save or bring hospitals revenue just because, maybe an MD didn't know that if he charted this, the hospital would bill for it, because they're not up to speed on the best practices for billing. I mean,
Right.
they're clinicians, they're focused on the patient. So in a lot of ways, this is a net positive for organizations collecting data, ingesting it, making sure we get everything, and then we could push it out to the appropriate channels.
Man, when you say that, I can just think of so many profound applications for having that kind of data. When you joined this company and you started seeing just how deep this can go, is it that when you have a new client and you start utilizing this data, do you guys see opportunities that say, hey, we can do this now, we can help you generate more revenue this way, or do you guys kind of already know what ways you can usually help a new client generate revenue when you start to work with them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a case by case basis, right? Every hospital and health system operates independently of each other for the most part. I mean, you have unique discrepancies in how certain clinicians do certain things, how they chart, how they, what machines they have in certain cases. So it's really a case by case basis. We simply um, introduce our technology. We really work with them after the fact to develop the protocols and the engine on the back end to really dive in. I mean, we have an entire implementation team that sits down with the hospitals and works with them to go line by line. If your ventilator hits this threshold, what does this mean to you? Okay, this means
Wow.
X, right? And then we go through every machine, we go through every protocol, we go through every data point, and at the end of the day, they build a unique, I don't want to say recipe, but like a unique way that really matches up with how they want to take care of patients. And
Okay.
we have our engine that does it at scale for them.
Wow. If you said healthcare was 100%, what percentage of healthcare would you say is just wide open to this technology and can't wait to get their hands on it?
Yeah. So I'll go into my background a little bit to answer this
Sure.
question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm former professional athlete, played 4 years in baseball, was one of the guys, at every point an athlete is told that they can't play anymore, right? Some
Right.
people it's like Tom Brady and you're going to be 85 years old, or, guys like me, I was 25, right? So
Sure, sure.
25 years old, I end up meeting a guy who owned a tech company here in Ohio. He was an ex-pro baseball player, really connected with him, knew nothing about the tech industry. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life,
Right.
but he hired me on. So I get in and I really cut my teeth in this organization. We were doing some fascinating things inside of the DoD, supporting our military, supporting some really interesting clients. But I really got to understand the power of data collection, large
Okay.
scale data collection, what we can do with that. So I did that for years and really came to understand that fundamentally and this is just my opinion, there are two industries that are really behind the eight ball in terms of adoption of technology. One is education across the country. I think COVID has escalated that a little more, and I think we're getting better. And I can say that because my wife is a teacher. Um, Second, I think is healthcare, and in relation, not related to the clinical technology, right? I think everything we're doing on the clinical side in terms of technology is super fascinating.
Sure.
To me, the opportunity really lands inside of running the organization, right?
Mhm.
What technology can we really adopt as a healthcare system to better run our organization like a Fortune 50 company?
Wow.
Because I think, depending on the reps who are listening to this, I mean, you'll have everything from hospitals charting on paper still to hospitals that are very, they've adopted a lot of technology. They've got
Right.
EMR integration.
Absolutely.
They're doing everything right.
Right. Right.
But I think there's so many health systems in America that are still trying to catch up to the adoption of technology. So I think this space is fascinating. I think it's only starting. In the next 10 to 20 years, there's going to be a massive integration of technology and healthcare. And I think it's an amazing place to be. And that's why I went from, your standard capital equipment sales rep back into technology, because I've always really had in my mind that this is the career path for me.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes me wonder. I think a lot of offices, and let me just speak to private practice. They're still intimidated by this technical, you know, to how to run an office with technology. They're very intimidated by it, especially for people that have been in practice for years. They've been using paper. It's worked fine. Why fix what's not broken? They know that technological advances are always coming, but as far as they can see, it hasn't really affected their business too much. Does your company kind of remove that fear of, we're going to make this easy for you to get into, utilize, and make a main thing within your practice?
Yeah, for sure. Right. I think any good company and good sales rep tries to make that transition as easy as possible. Um, I was actually talking about this today. Actually, you're always going to have your legacy clients that, granted, we're probably going to be some of those guys in 30 years too, right? That
Right.
technology
Well,
is coming up.
I'm not. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I get it. Yes. Yes. We're all
Yeah,
going to become that. I get it.
in 30, 40 years, I mean, we're going to be
Right.
seeing the next generation come up with things that we fully don't understand, right? And
Absolutely.
anything you
Absolutely.
don't fully understand, you're always a little leery of, right? Um, so I think that's the job of the company, the product, and the sales rep, and the sales team in general, to really make that transition easy. But yeah, you're always going to have outliers, and I think the next generation coming in, right? The next wave coming in always helps. Staffing being an issue across the board in America right now, they're trying to get as many people in as possible. So you see these the younger generation come in. I think they're really adept to adopting new technology.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
I
Right.
think they get it. So that's going to help.
Got it. Would you say that this type of technology is being taught in med schools, that on a student level, these new and upcoming doctors are learning it in school, or do you just think, are you just speaking to just a generation that, is on social media and utilizing all these ways of communicating?
Yeah, I think the new generation, again, is very open to new technology. We as a company, we focus on academic institutions.
Okay.
That's a main driver for us, right? I mean, if you think about a perfect client that wants to ingest as much data as possible, that's an academic institution.
And that's where
Um,
you guys are really penetrating. Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, we do a really good job there. We do a really good job at some legacy institutions that maybe they were behind the eight ball and they're converting, and they weren't part of the first wave, but now we're entering the fold and we're an even better technology. So yeah, I would say the academic institutions are a great opportunity for us, because we can get in with these young generation, and we can have them fully understand the power of data and what it can do for them, but also not just the clinicians. I mean, again, the the hospital administration, the people in the back office that are doing the billing, that are really leveraging these records and this data. It's going to help them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about, so the sales rep in this space. One thing that I think, I don't think medical software sales is discussed enough in enough circles. I don't think enough people are aware of what's really happening in this space, and especially people that want to get into the industry. I don't even think they know that they can take a position like that. Talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about what that sales rep looks like. What are they able to do, and maybe even where are they coming from?
It's a really interesting question. I think that the answer is evolving as we speak, um, and in part, it's with a lot of what you're doing with your organization, what some leaders on LinkedIn are really are doing and teaching out there. Um, but the rep in the medical software space, it's an intuitive sale, right? It's not the traditional get in the car, go hit 5 hospitals today, go to the doctor's office, go to the scrub sink. It's a very thoughtful sale. It's typically longer sales cycles. I mean, I came from capital equipment sales, so that's pretty long sales cycle as well. Um, but you have to be comfortable. talking to people virtually. Most of the heavy lifting is done virtually. I will fly
Okay.
to meetings and fly to, big events with clients. But most of everything I do is done virtually. It's getting on calls like this. It's presenting demos. That's a skill that takes a while to really craft. How to, have an effective tone. If you're on camera, getting comfortable, managing face-to-face
Right.
conversations, because it's not a
Right.
natural thing. And then really, focusing on learning the software, understanding that in technology, when you're demoing software, there's hiccups, there's Wi-Fi disconnections, there's people that aren't engaging, and it's not face-to-face. So, I think it's a different set of skills, but in large part, it's the same, right? Everything that makes really great medical device reps great will make a medical device software rep great as well, right? It's work ethic, it's attitude, it's effort, it's consistency, right? It's tenacity. It's all those things that we think about with all of the great reps that we know.
Right.
Um, it's the same across the board. It's just a different way of connecting with your end user, with your customer, and presenting the value and presenting your product.
For this space, is it open to reps that never had medical device in their background? Maybe they were in a completely different field. They weren't even doing any selling. Is it
Yeah,
open to that, to people like professionals like that?
it's a great question. So I'm always a big advocate of, if you can tell the story, if you are a great salesperson, I want to hire for effort and attitude. I want to hire the guys that have the aptitude. Yeah, sure. Having sales experience is important, right? I'm not sure straight out of college you're best suited for a rep role in the medical device space. In the tech industry, there are very similar levels of transition to a career, much like med device, where you have an associate level role and then typically a rep role. In tech, it's called a SDR or BDR, which is
Sure.
really your entry level right out of college. They're going to make the phone calls, the cold calling, which is a great skill. Then you typically move to an AE role, which is, a medical device sales rep role. I think there's a natural transition and progression to that. So depending on the company, what they're hiring for, I definitely think sales experience isn't necessarily required, right? For
Yeah.
me, in the interview process, for people looking to break in, it's all about the story you craft, how you present yourself, what attributes you show to the hiring manager that really relate to the job you're going for. It can have
Right.
nothing to do with any experience in your past. I mean, perfect
Right.
example, I got a medical device sales rep role without ever being a med device. I was never an associate, right? I had sales experience,
Yeah.
but I knew how to craft my story in the tech world to how it relates to meeting with doctors and architects and medical equipment planners and everything I
Absolutely.
had to do at Stryker.
Absolutely. No, that's well said. Thank you for that answer. All right, so let's dial it back a little bit. I do kind of want to address some of your history, and then we're going to jump back into the competitiveness of this space. But let's go to history first. So you explained to us that 25, you had no idea what you were doing with your life. So take us back to college then, because between graduation and 25, what exactly was going on?
Yeah, so I got drafted out of college my senior year from Kent State University in baseball. Went to play for the Padres for 3 years. Unfortunately, got hurt.
Stop.
Um,
We're talking to a major league baseball player. Is that what
no,
you're
no, no,
telling us?
no, no, no. Big difference. I did not make the major leagues. I actually had a post about that today. I did not make the major leagues. I got to play in a couple big league spring training games and a big league
Okay.
exhibition game. And
Okay.
one of my favorite memories is I got to play 5 innings at second base next to Adrian Gonzalez at first base,
Nice.
which was awesome because he's just the
Nice.
man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I was with them for 3 years. Spent most of my time, most of my career in the California League in a place called Lake Elsinore,
Okay.
um, and then I played 1 year with the Orioles after my surgery. Really didn't come back fully, so I was really seeing the writing on the wall, and knew I was kind of on my way out of baseball. And I was presented with actually an opportunity from the Orioles at the time. They wanted me to be a big league infield coach. or not a big league, a minor league infield coach,
Sure.
which was great because at the time they had Manny Machado, they had Brian Scope, they had some great players in the infield that I would get to work with.
Yeah.
So I was really at this inflection point. Okay, I don't have my degree yet. Do I want to stay in baseball, a game that I love, and kind of be a baseball lifer? Or do I want to go back, get my degree, kind of remove myself from the game for a few years and go into business? Ultimately, I chose to go into business. I went back, got a job, worked full time, went to school at night, finished my degree. And then again, that job was in the tech industry. So I got lucky and really kind of catapulted my career from there. I mean, I loved the tech industry, everything that was going on at the time, like 2011, 12. It was a really fascinating time for tech. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. Okay. What brought you to the current role? How long have you been in this current role right now?
I've been in this company for a month. I am brand
1 month.
new.
You brand
1
green as
month.
they get. All right. So what brought you to this?
Yeah.
What brought you to this position?
Yeah. I have been looking for, again, an opportunity in the space of the MedTech software space, because again, I believe really to my core that is the future in med device. I hear guys talk about the glory days of med device, back in the day when it was just like the Wild West and everybody was just crushing it. And it was like the glory days, right?
Right.
I think we are approaching that in technology.
Wow. That's
I really
bold.
do. I really
Yeah. No,
do. I really
that's
do.
a beautiful thing to be able to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's, I think it's a lot like the med device field. I mean, there are different focuses, there are different divisions, there are
Right.
different, aspects of technology that will, some will go parabolic, some may die out. But I really do believe in the convergence of the health systems and technology here in the next 10, 15 years, that it's going to be a great place to be for somebody getting in the industry that wants to learn, that's hungry. I think you couldn't find a better place.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's go back to the competition. So what does the competition look like for this space right now? Is it crowded already? Is it barely you guys and a few other names, or are the players kind of stepping in? What's going on?
Yeah, it's high level. It's us and a few others. I think when you dive in and get granular on our offerings, again, we focus on anesthesia, we focus on perfusion, ECMO care, L&D, and the ICU suites. I think all of those kind of have different players in those niches, but there's really not one that encapsulates or offers the entire solution. So I think each kind of pocket has some players. I mean, there's some major EMRs that do a piece of what we do. There are some other kind of legacy companies that haven't really updated their technology in 10 years, but they do a piece of what we do in a pocket.
Yeah.
But really, we're really on kind of the cutting edge of what we're getting at.
That's exciting. So I think, well, I would like a visual of what it can look like 10 years out, right? So paint the picture of, I don't know, you choose a perspective, whether it be from a patient's perspective, a sales rep's perspective, or maybe even a hospital administrator's perspective. But what does the future look like when this space is just, it's saturated, it is a norm that we can't even envision today?
It's a big question.
Big question.
The
It's the only,
space,
only kind of questions to ask.
yeah, what I envision and what I know is already in progress, and I think this will be pretty interesting to the listeners. Automation is kind of at the forefront right now, partly because if you think about the number of devices and pieces of equipment in hospital systems on a daily basis, if you go down into SPD and look at all the pieces down there, I mean, it could be a nightmare. And I think in the future, what you're going to see is you're going to see a scenario like this, and it's already happening in some places, but every piece of technology is able to be tracked throughout the hospital, bar none. That's already starting to happen, but only in some places. I think as a patient, when you are wheeled into the room, there will be cameras, there will be sensors on doors, there will be things that let the hospital system know that hey, Chris Tremblay just entered OR8 and he is now, getting put under anesthesia. That time will be automatically collected. There will be cameras with AI that understand when the first incision is made and what doctors and clinicians are in the room, right? So all of these things, there's going to be full transparency,
Yeah.
because I think that hospital systems, I think it only benefits them, for billing purposes, like we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
To fully understand what care is being performed and done, and what medications are being administered, what equipment's being used. So all of that, I believe, is going to be automated to the point where they have a clear understanding of what's taking place and where everything is. But again, I think there's going to be technology that will automatically dim lights with voice control, which already exists. There will be, again, AI in the room that understands where you're at in the case, and can collect those data points. There will be sensors in the room to understand humidity and um, you know any like smoke gas or any surgical gas that's in the room, if that's harmful levels, right? So I'm not sure in terms of broader than that. I mean, I can only understand what I
No,
know
that's a good
for right
visual.
now.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's
Um,
a heck of a picture.
but I really think what you're going to lose is the human aspect of charting data and collecting data. There's still
Right.
always going to be humans in the health systems, right? I mean, we need people to take care of us, but I think you're going to lose, well, the circulator's over here writing things down on a piece of paper, and then he's got to turn around and do the same thing on a
Right.
computer, right?
Right.
All of that I feel like is going to make the clinicians more efficient. At the end of the day, focus on the patient, which is what they want to be doing anyways.
Right. Right. So, interesting question I'm going to ask because I'm not even sure where to go with it. But, you know, do you see this becoming mandated by the government that companies like yours need to be implemented into every healthcare institution sooner than later?
I don't know. That'd be nice, right? If I could get a sole source with the government, please, that'd be
Well,
great.
I mean, in the same vein that EMR became, highly incentivized for everyone to kind of jump on board with,
Sure.
with Obamacare, do you feel like that's kind of coming with this space as well?
I don't know if it'll be a regulatory thing. I think about Europe right now in this space. I mean, they're largely paper based for charting in relation to anesthesia and critical care points like that we serve. And I think we're looking to get into that space sooner than later. Uh, and so I don't know. I don't have the chops. I don't have the regulatory understanding if it will be mandated, but I certainly think if there is a use case that can be proven that we are fundamentally helping healthcare systems
Yeah.
collect the right data that they can bill appropriately. I don't see a downside there, and I'm not just talking about the company that I work
Right.
for. I mean, in
Just in
general,
general.
I think, yeah, in general, I think if there is technology that is going to improve not only patient outcomes and care, but also the patient experience, I think we've all been in hospitals. I think the experience could use a little bit of work.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm thinking about this application, from the emergency room all the way to the backup with trying to get certain procedures taken care of. I mean, this could close the loop on so many inefficiencies in healthcare. That's how I'm seeing it. And in fact, tell us, what is the most dramatic change you've seen so far where you just said, "Wow, you know, because of what we're doing, these people are in a completely different world, a better world."
Yeah, so I can't speak to experience because I'm fairly new, right? But I,
Sure.
I I do know a story that I was told yesterday by our CEO.
Sure.
I'm not going to name any health system names, but there was a study that was done, um, and we were partnered with multiple health systems. And two of the health systems were using our technology or a similar technology to collect data and to therefore ingest that data to look at the efficiencies of billing. And the third health system was doing the legacy paper charting. Okay. It was basically concluded and found because we were able to ingest all the device data that one of the health systems was not only not accurately charting a particular data point, but there was actually human bias associated with it, meaning that they were actively making the numbers better than what they were from the actual machine because it was relative to their performance as clinicians.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
Caught
Yes.
red-handed.
Yeah.
Man. No, that's intense. That is
Yeah.
intense. When that was brought to, I'm assuming, the leader's attention for that entity, I mean, was it just like, whoa?
I would assume so. Again, I was not
Hey,
part of
that's right.
it.
You weren't there. That's right. Right. You. This
I
is
would
the
assume
story
so,
you heard.
but I
That's
know
right. Yeah.
it wasn't something that the health system was behind. Obviously, they were very thankful that we
That
were
it was
able
found.
to help produce this data.
Yeah.
Not only because of the human bias that was discovered, but also too because on a level that there was misbilling opportunities.
Right.
So it generated revenue for them. So at the end of the day, if we're improving patient outcomes, if we're improving care, and we're also helping health systems incur revenue, it's a good day.
Okay. So this is a podcast, and we speak very freely here. When it comes to these health systems, what are they seeing as the best incentive from you guys? Are they looking at it like, wow, they're going to help us build for things we could have never imagined? Or are they looking at it purely as they're just going to help us be more efficient? Or, what's kind of the common theme that resonates the most with the health systems you guys work with?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I mean, the billing aspect is definitely a component, but that's not fundamentally what we do. I mean, that is an advantage of our technology, just
Sure.
from collecting data from multiple devices. Fundamentally, I think really when you look at our technology or a technology like ours, you think about at scale, what we allow, let's say, one anesthesiologist to be able to cover efficiently, rather than just a purely staff-based model where you have a human being there.
Right.
I think it's really technology. It allows clinicians to leverage the tech at scale because we have built-in protocols. Because we're really taking the hospital's way of taking care of these patients, and we're putting it into an engine that can efficiently monitor everybody. And it's not just in the hospital. I mean, we're talking multiple locations over a health system. You could really put this in a command center and look at every person that's in a bed.
Wow. Wow. So, I was talking to another guest a little bit ago, and they're pretty much going to different private practices, and they're saying, hey, you don't really need to have a room full of staff anymore. You can have it all managed from a company that's, out of this country, that can do it not only as effectively the staff that you would have in here, but more effectively. Do you kind of see the future as just a lot less healthcare staff, more of the systems that you guys are talking about, more of that type of business that I just mentioned, and maybe these clinicians, they're not by themselves, but I mean, they're operating with a very small team?
I hope it's not less staff. I mean, I think we already have staffing issues across the board. I think there's a lot of people that want to be in healthcare because they fundamentally care about taking care of people, and I don't know if the answer is to scale them back. Right? I think, like any business, I think a hospital or a health system maybe could take a good look at where, to use a bad analogy, they can trim the fat in terms of maybe some inefficiencies, right? Whether that is on the clinical side, but I doubt it, because again, the way our population growth and everything is going, we need all the clinicians we can get. But if, there are inefficiencies in a healthcare system, just like there is in any business. So I think, maybe a technology like ours can really help clinicians scale, and can help the operations run a little bit smoother on the back end.
Got it. Now, with every great business and great innovation, there are the challenges. What are some of the challenges you guys have faced?
I think with any technology, there's a hesitancy to adopt a new technology, right? Our company was really born out of some great healthcare institutions. So we have that ability to say we have some great partners that really carry a lot of weight in the healthcare industry. Um, but I think that's always a challenge, right? I mean, we're not a major player in terms of we don't have 30,000 people working for us. We don't have a branded name like some of these major companies do, where you
Sure.
see it,
Right.
So I think that's always a challenge when you're in a small company, in a startup environment, whether it's tech or med tech or fintech or any tech. Um, Being at a startup, being at a small company comes with that challenge. Again, we were talking earlier about maybe an older population that is less inclined to take in new technology as they're working towards kind of the end of their careers, which I don't necessarily blame them. So I think those are challenges. With any med device rep, I think there's always capital allocation challenges right now with healthcare systems. Those are very real. So I don't think it's unlike most med device companies. I think it's just a little more nuanced because of the way we operate and who we go after.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, one thing I want to know about Chris is what are some of the just true advantages from going from your traditional medical sales role into a med tech role?
Yeah, I think there's a couple, right? First and foremost, I think guys as they guys and gals as they transfer out of med device, and potentially into med tech, you have to think about it as technology is now just getting adopted in these spaces. You're not going to have the traditional legacy big four, five, six med device companies that have been there for 30 years that Dr. Jones has worked with for 25 years and he's never leaving, and you're never going to convert that business.
Right.
Everybody is going to be adopting technology, and you're going to be the first one in a lot of cases. So as a med device rep coming into med tech, if you have those relationships in the hospital that you've been there for 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 years, that they know you, they trust you, that is a tremendous advantage when you're coming in with a new technology that maybe people don't fully understand. They've never
Right.
fully heard of your company. You can bring your expertise over X amount of years and the trust that you've built into that space. It's tremendous advantage. The other piece I think that's not talked about enough, the traditional model in med device, we all know it, right? If you look at across the entire country, depending on the division, you might have 75 to 300 reps covering the whole country, right? I'm just making numbers up.
Sure.
And I think every year those territories are getting smaller, commissions are going down.
Right.
I think that's just where things have progressed over the last couple of years. In the med tech space, because of the natural way we do business, we're not running the hospitals physically. You really control your office from your desk. I mean, I'm doing everything virtually. Yes, I will fly to meetings. Yes, in 2 weeks, I'm going to Chicago for a meeting, but 95% of my job is done virtually from my desk. So what does that mean as a rep? That means as a rep, right now I'm covering 8 to 9 states,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if you think about a company in the med tech space that's starting out or building out their sales force, you don't need 200, 300 reps to cover the country. You may need 10, you may need 20. And what does that mean for me? Well, I get to cover major metropolitan areas. I get to cover massive hospital systems, right? I get really flexibility. I'm not confined to a 30-mile radius of hospitals.
Right.
So
Right.
for me, it's only advantageous to think about this industry as, again, kind of what I said earlier is like the glory days, right? It's like the
Right.
glory days of med tech, I believe, is just coming up because now you get to be one of those 10 guys or gals that is covering the entire US. And
Yeah.
think about
That's
all the
true.
hospitals. I mean,
Yeah.
quota is not a problem. So it's literally on you and your effort, your attitude, and going out, you're not going to have a shortage of healthcare systems to cover. It's really about adopting the technology, believing in it, and really driving value, to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. Okay. We're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to get more into who you are, Chris. So please tell us, family man, kids, what's the story?
Yeah. Yeah. Family man. My wife and I are expecting our first the day after
Congratulations.
Christmas. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. We're very excited. We're very excited. We also have a little dog, which
Okay.
she's my best friend, man. She's my ride or die. I love her.
Fantastic.
Um,
Fantastic. What
yeah.
keeps you
So
what keeps you, to perform in this role and to kind of really, appreciate the perspective you get to have with all technology and everything that's happening? What kind of keeps you focused? Do you have like a guiding philosophy or a routine you follow? What keeps you able to do what you do every day?
man, if you would have asked me that 7, 8 months ago, it would have been a different answer.
Okay.
Um,
Life changes, right?
now, yeah, life changes, man. Now that I'm going to be a soon-to-be father, um, I know everybody says this, but it really changes your perspective, right, on a lot of things in life. What's important, what really matters. You kind of take stock in the things that you thought were important and really look at everything. And so for me, family drives me. My wife, my soon-to-be child. We're not finding out the gender, so I don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, everything, the life that we want to build for ourselves, that's all there in the background now. Not to say it wasn't before, but everything really, becomes very real at that point.
Right. Right. That's fantastic. Again, congratulations. And then
Thank you.
for the audience, for those out there that are thinking about, they're listening to this episode and they're saying, wow, I am curious. I want to know what it means to be a sales rep in that space. How do I get in there? What are, maybe give us three things that you would say a current professional, so not just med device rep, not just a sales rep, but any professional that's considering this, that wants to get more into this space. What are three things you would say they need to be mindful of as they pursue those opportunities? What should they be preparing themselves for or starting to think about if they want to make this kind of transition?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think you really need to do your research to fully understand. Let me backtrack. I think there is this notion, and it's a correct notion, that med device is a great sales opportunity, and I just want to. That's what I want to do because I know I can make a lot of money. And it is right. I mean, you can be very successful in this space, whether it's med device, whether it's med tech. Um, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of sacrifices, reps listening to this, I'm sure make. There's time away from family and there's a lot of stress. There's, growth quotas every year. Not like any other sales job, but I also think specific to med tech, you really have to make sure you do your research. I recommend people reaching out and talking, asking for a short call, fully understanding a day in the life for these people, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies. And
Right.
there's a lot that you have to be able to, you have to be really good at communication because you're doing it virtually in most capacities in medtech. Um, you have to really be comfortable with yourself in these virtual environments and be comfortable with technology. A lot of people think they're comfortable with technology until you have to learn an entire software platform
Right,
that
right.
isn't Apple, right? It's not like the sexy thing to go learn.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people that I've run into in the course of my career that, oh, I want to be in tech, and then they get a job in this tech company, which is really interesting when you dive into it. But it's a software that focuses on a niche, and it might not be the thing that you're super passionate about. But at the end of the day, right? I mean, you're building skill sets, you're driving value to your client, and if you work hard, you have a good effort and attitude, um, you can be very successful in these roles.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Chris, it was great spending time with you. We're gonna wrap things up here with a little bit of quick. I haven't even named it. I just kind of do it. So we're just gonna do it this time. One of these days, I am gonna name it. But you're gonna get a series of questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer. And
Okay,
here we go. You ready?
ready?
All right. Best book you've read in the last 6 months.
Oh gosh, The Terminal List.
The Terminal List. What's that? I have not heard of that one.
It is with. They just made a Amazon. It's a Jack Carr book, former Navy SEAL. They just made an Amazon series about it with Chris Pratt. It's basically about a Navy SEAL team goes on an operation. Everybody but Chris Pratt's character gets killed, and there's kind of an entire backstory as to why that happened, and it's very nefarious, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. The Terminal List. All right.
Yeah.
Best movie you've seen in the last 6 months, movie or TV show?
Oh, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon.
I'm
Hands
a fan
down.
too. We need to say no more. We need to say no more. All right. Best meal you've had in the last 6 months.
Best meal I've had in the last 6 months. I would say we were in the Bahamas in July, and I had a amazing Bahamian goat.
But Bohemian goat.
Bahamian
It's
goat.
one thing to
Yeah.
have goat, which I'm familiar with actually, but a Bohemian goat that just puts a whole new spin on it. Can you elaborate at
Yeah.
all?
I mean, it was, it was with their spices and the rub and coconut, and
Wow.
it was really good, man.
Amazing, huh? Now, you know what? Next time I go
Yeah.
to Bahamas, I will definitely be having Bohemian goat. And then last question, what's the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
Oh, I mean, it's probably borderline 6 months at this point, but I mean, finding out I was going to be a dad, I mean,
Absolutely.
hands down,
Absolutely.
dude.
Hands
That's
down. There it is. There it is.
life changing.
Come on, man. All right. Well, you know what, Chris? It was great to see you on the show today. We're going to be looking out for you and all the amazing technological advances you're going to be in front of and being a part of and helping implement. So thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
And that was Chris Tremblay. Another fascinating story with pearls of wisdom that I hope you all learned from. So some of you might be listening out there and thinking to yourselves, that's what I want to do, or I want to be in an industry that's connected to that, or I want to make an impact like that. And you've been entertaining medical sales, maybe pharmaceutical, maybe medical device, maybe genetic testing. Some of you may have spent hours online trying to apply to everywhere you saw fit, and you can't seem to get in the interviewing room. Or some of you might have had interviews left and right, and you just can't seem to get to that offer stage. Or some of you have been thinking about doing all of these things, and you haven't taken any action. Well, here I am letting you know that it's time to do something about it. It's time to take action. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Attain Medical Sales Role, and have a conversation with someone from our team, and let us show you how you can get into this industry in a number of months, not years, but months. I love bringing these stories to the forefront. I love sharing the experiences Chris has had, and I want to help you get into a career track that can give you those same kinds of stories. So make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com. And make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.